In this video, we're continuing our discussion of how we can use an auto suggest in place of a drop-down control to achieve in effect the same effect that the drop-down does, which is decode the stored value with a human readable display value. So right now what we've done is we've joined order items with products. So now if we go into working preview, you can see that for each product ID we can get to see what the corresponding product name is. So the next thing that we want to do now is go and make product name into an auto suggest field. So let's go back now and we'll go to product name and we'll go there and define a lookup. We'll define an auto suggest over there, and then let's bring up the builder. Now the data source for this is Alpha DAO because we're going against a SQL backend. We'll choose our customer SQL Server database as our connection for our connection string. We're going to go against the products table. So we'll go there and choose products. Then the field name to search is going to be product name. And we'll say the user must select from the list. And then on the fill-in, though, this is the important thing, we want to, when the user makes a selection from the drop-down box, we want to fill in the product ID, because really we don't actually care about storing the product name. We only care about storing the product ID. So when the user makes the choice, the choice from the auto suggest, we're going to fill in the product ID over there. So let's go ahead now and then save this, and let's test out what we have so far. So we'll go over there now and we'll start typing. I'll type in B, and there's my auto suggest, and you can see right now that it's got a value of 0 in the product ID, but when I make my selection it gets filled in there as the product ID of 40. So the next enhancement is that we don't actually want to make any updates to the products table. So this field product name right now is bound to the product name field in the products table, and we don't want to be making any edits to that field. So your first thought might be to go and make this into a read-only, a non-updatable field. But the problem with that is that you won't be able to type into the field, and so that's not going to solve our problem. The way in which we solve this problem is we go to the product name field, and instead of turning off updatable over there, which is what I suggested will not work, even though that might be your first instinct, we're going to change the table alias, which is the name of the alias that any updates will be applied to, from products to unbound. So that's star unbound. So that means that this field, even though we can type into it now, is unbound. It's not bound to any backend table, and any edits will not be persisted to any backend table when we commit the data that we're editing in order details. So now let's go ahead now and save this, and then go ahead now and again let's run it. And so I'll go here and type in M, and there's my auto suggest. I make a choice and there comes up the product ID of 72. Or if I go to an existing record and I type in M, there's my auto suggest, and now it fills in 49. Now there's no need to actually display the product ID column to the user. So let's go back now to the product ID column and hide it. So now when we go ahead now and run the grid, we don't even see the product ID, but when I enter a new record over here and I go there and type in, say, Jack, and then make my selection, behind the scenes the product ID field has been filled in and will be saved. So now this grid is behaving in a very similar way to the first grid that we displayed that used the drop-down control. The big benefit, though, is that instead of having to populate a huge list of choices in the drop-down control up front when the grid is initially displayed, we can now do small AJAX callbacks to get a much fewer set of records, and now we can deal with much larger lists to choose from. Thank you very much.